So, as I'm reflecting on my educational leadership pathway, I'm realizing that certain things are starting to come into view and certain principles are really starting to hold strong with what I believe and what I hope to empower and envision with my staff at my school. One of the most important principles would be integrity. I feel like honesty and being true to yourself is the most important principle that you could have and that you could follow through with ethically and with students in general and their ability to have a great education. So integrity, I think, is going to be first and foremost for me. That means I'm going to be honest in what I do, honest in what I say, honest in the decisions that I make. I'm going to get the information that I need to make a great decision, but ultimately I'm going to go with what I think is best for our students, and I'm going to try and be honest with myself and with our staff on making those choices and making those decisions. I'm also going to model that with my staff so that they understand that's a strong principle and that's a foundation for the way I feel like they should act and they should behave. Another big one for me is just passion for learning in general. I think I want to instill that in my staff, that learning doesn't have to stop when you graduate from high school or graduate from college. As a classroom teacher, we're never perfect. We shouldn't be. We should be striving to be better. So the concept of always learning, I think if we ourselves hold on to that, then we're going to show that and we're going to see that in our classrooms, and our teachers are going to show it in our classrooms. So if I'm not developing myself as a leader and continuously learning and continuously taking classes and continuously reading and educating myself on how to be a better leader, then I shouldn't expect my staff to do any more with what they have, and they're just going to stay the course and stay the same. If I'm showing them and modeling that I'm learning, I'm getting more information, and I'm incorporating it or using it in some way, then I'm demonstrating that I want them to do the same, and that their students should be doing the same thing as well. So I want to instill that we always continue learning. The big thing right now, and especially that's happening in the communities here in New York, but also in North Carolina when I was there, is equity for all students. It's a problem. It's been a problem in education for years, and we've been kind of hiding away from it and pushing it onto poverty or some other issues that we feel like are easier to talk about. But there's a systemic racial issue that needs to be talked about in education. It needs to be talked about in the curriculum that we've started and we've established since back before the civil rights movement, and that hasn't changed. And the equity of voice in our students of color and our history of people of color is a concern, and it needs to change. We need to see that happen in our education system, and it's going to take good leaders, strong leaders who are willing to have those conversations and stand up to really promote that within schools. So I feel like that's important to really focus on, and that we really start thinking about all students, no matter where they come from, no matter what background they have. We need to embrace it. We need to hold on to it, and we need to use it in our instructional practice to create them and to help them have a better future. And then for me personally, a holistic view of education is very important. I want students to really focus on their talents and being creative. The arts has a big place in my heart. As a music teacher, as a former music teacher, and as a future school leader, I want to really, really instill that the arts are very special in helping really, really embrace all that a child can be, so that they need to have an outlet for their emotions. They need to be able to show their talents and their skills and their abilities. We need to let them show those skills and those talents, and then really help them build on those things. And it's not always going to happen in the English classroom. It's not always going to happen in math. It may, and it can, and we should encourage it. but it can also happen in art class. It can also happen in music class. It can happen on the sports field when they're not even in any school in their YMCA program. We need to find those talents, we need to find those skills, and we need to develop them and help them understand what they have and the potential of where it can take them. So as I'm growing into the profession of being a school leader, I understand the challenges that are going to come and the importance of knowing how to work with power and manipulate at times, or just develop relationships to build, political capital as best you can within the spectrum of where your position is. So those two landscapes are very important to navigate, and navigate it well. So dealing in power and politics as a school leader, it's important to have those strategies in place and know what to do and how to manage your way through those two big umbrellas of what you're going to have to deal with on a daily basis. So one of the biggest ways I think I can help with that, and I can meet those needs, a strategy will be building strong relationships. I feel like I'm a strong people person, and building connections with people is the best start with gaining power, because you're not trying to manipulate them, you're building a rapport with them, you're building a connection with them. And as we know with people, once you build that relationship and you build that rapport, and once you find those connections with people, then you're able to work better together towards a unified or a common goal. And once we can establish that we have those common goals and we know what we want, then we're going to have that vision and that direction, and we're going to do everything we need to do to get there. So I'm going to be able to empower my staff and my students with seeing their future, and then I'm going to empower myself to make sure that I'm giving my teachers what they need and my students what they need to get there. So working with those relationships, understanding their needs, their perspectives, working with them individually so I know what makes them tick, is also a great way to understand what they need, what can help push them, or what they might need more of in order to help them accomplish their goal. The next thing I want to really envision is having more of a servant leadership. This model to me is important in schools because at this time, marketing and politics is a big deal in schools, and we're really competing to get students in our schools and to stay in our schools. And if we don't understand how to market our school and tell our story and to get kids involved in our school and give them reasons why they want to be there and give our staff reasons why they want to be there, then they're going to go. And so if you're a servant and you're understanding that concept that you're there to serve others, you're there to help others, give them what they need. Our teachers are there to serve their students and to help them provide the things, the necessary tools that they need to learn. They already have the curiosity. They already have the vision and the hope that they can become something better. Children naturally have that as soon as they come in from kindergarten. As soon as they're 2 years old, they're asking questions, wanting to know more and more. But one thing that's happened, and one of the stories that many people tell, Sir Ken Robinson and others tell these stories of, we know one thing about kids as they get older is they lose those drives. They lose that curiosity. They lose that ability to jump and think outside the box and take risks. And it's either a correlation or causation. We don't have that ability to say, but we do know that one thing they've all done is they've gone through school. So I want to change that. I want to make that something that is changeable. I know it's changeable, and I want to be that model leader that can make that change. And I think being a servant and thinking that mentality will help that, because it'll help us understand what we're there for and who we're there for. We've taken that focus off of students and learning and knowledge and gaining knowledge and being curious and thinking critically and solving problems. We're taking those things away, and we've focused more on economics and having ability to be in the workplace. And we're taking away we've taken away talent and creativity, and we need to bring that back into schools. And I know Marzano has a strong place with you being a visionary, and we worked on being an effective principal, effective leader, and having that vision. So I think that's another big focus of a strategy, where I'm going to start really making sure we know what our goals are, we know where we're going. That's such an important thing, because if you have that unified vision and that unified goal of what you want to do, and you can get your staff to get behind that common interest and that common value and that common belief, then you're start to build trust within your school, and your staff is going to start taking risks, and you're going to feel like you're able to start taking risks and really start building the needs of the students and doing what it takes to get them to the knowledge that they need to be successful. So having that vision and being that visionary principal is also important, and that's a strategy that I'll have. Still continue reading on books and learning about how to create that vision and get people to move with you in the steps towards that vision. And I really like the words and the talks of Simon Sinek and his books as well, and his thoughts of starting with why. That's a huge focus on things that we don't talk about in schools a lot. We talk about getting the best answer. We talk about having the right quiz scores and the right testing. But we don't talk about why we do what we do. We don't talk about the reasons behind why we teach algebra and the reasons why we teach kids how to read. We go to one little small step, and then we don't go a step further and talk about why. And I think that's a very big important process in schooling that's missing right now. And I want to focus and help my teachers understand why that's important. Me explaining why we do what we do, it will help them understand why the kids need to know this information. It's not arbitrary. It's not something they're going to assume. We need to educate kids, and we need to help them understand why they're in school and what it's for. So those strategies will help me become and hopefully be and serve as a better leader. Some strategies in order to work with politics. In the arena of politics, we go back to relationships again. This is all about building key relationships and finding the relationships to build with those key stakeholders within the school and then that are outside of the school. So building that parent-teacher organization, and also understanding who are the key parents that you need to make those connections with, building that rapport, understanding the micro political aspect of what's inside the school and the relationships within the school. So those smaller notions of who's got some more power that you need to be aware of, understanding their relationship with you and their position with you, and making sure that you understand what position they have, and knowing where you need to tread and where you need to not tread and where you need to be around. Those kind of relationships are very important, and you need to understand where things can come out and talk and where you can't. You have to make sure you make those trusting friendships very carefully. Another thing is to focus in the community itself. If you are seen as a hub of learning in your community, then you're going to have that output, that macro political concept of being seen as a place that's a great place to be, and that kids want to be, and that teachers want to be, and that future leaders want to be. You need to have that global scope and be able to put yourself out there. You need to be able to invite people in from the community, and you need to get yourself out into the community and be that face for your school and tell that story, so that you can develop that market and really get the kids to know why they're there and to know why it's important to be at your school. So you have to develop those, and the easiest way to do that is with community events. Start getting community involved. Have them come in for a day, do a cleanup day, have them do a parent night, of course you always have your talent nights where you have talent shows, or maybe you have just your music programs going on. During those times are great times to highlight key parents, key stakeholders, highlight your school, tell more of what's going on in the school. It's not just going on within that night. Those are great times to have a mouthpiece and to continue telling your story for your school. Another thing would be to invite some of those higher ups into the building. Don't be afraid to reach out and say, come by and see what great things we're doing in the school. Send a quick email to a supervisor or a superintendent, or as far as you want to take it, because the worst thing they can say is no, but you're building that connection that something's going on here and they need to be there in the building to see it, because they're missing out. And they're going to get that, they're going to start to get that understanding, and they're going to start to see something's happening at that school and we need to be a part of it. So those strategies of building that micro-political on the small scale of just small, simple relationships of knowing where to navigate the water, and then on the bigger scale of really putting yourself out there and your school out there, you really have to have those key elements, and I'm working towards that. As a school leader, there are many issues that we face today in education. We're dealing with school choice. We're dealing with vouchers and funding. We're dealing with teacher quality and teachers moving to other places because they're not getting paid enough. There's a lot of things that are happening in education, new education policies, new restrictions on testing, new guidelines for testing, some people trying new testing ideas. There are always new things and challenges and changes that are going to happen in the face of education. And these strategies that I've talked about and these ways have helped me sort of meet those needs. But I'm always going to have to grow. I'm always going to have to get new ideas. So working with my staff, working with future leaders, branching out, reaching out to people when I don't know the answers, because I know I'm not going to, especially not starting. You have to be able to rely on others and trust others that have already been there, and really work to make those connections as well, and reach out when you need help. So understanding when to ask for help is very, very important, and it's a strong strategy that I'm going to rely on quite often, I'm sure, at the very beginning. So those kind of necessities that I'll need to think about and to reflect on, I'll continue to reflect on. I'll always be thinking about what I could have done better. I'll always be wondering, how it could have been if I would have done it this way. Maybe next time I'll try it another way. Is it working? Is it not working? Why is it not working? We're always asking questions to make sure we're doing a better job and to make sure we're doing the best thing for our students and for our kids. So I'm learning as a leader, and I'm growing, and one day I hope to be a great one.